Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show.
Good morning and welcome to another edition of the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show. I'm your host, Anoa Changa. It's really great to be back here again with you today. You can see all my plans to take over the world in the background on the whiteboard. Just really great to fill in once again, chopping it up with you all. Happy Hump Day. It's Wednesday. We're like almost in the middle of May. We're almost to June, which is the middle of the year. It's kind of wild. I don't know how y'all do it at 8 o'clock in the morning, but salute to all the 8 a.m. warriors, early morning folks doing their thing. So much going on in the world today, but I wanted to start off with a little good news. Not that there's bad news or anything, but want to just chop it up a little bit about Dr. Lisa Cook. This really amazing economist has finally been confirmed by the Senate. President Biden nominated Lisa Cook, I believe it was in early February, but Lisa Cook was nominated to be, on the Federal Reserve Board of Governors, and she's actually the first Black woman to not just be nominated, but to ascend to this role and actually be confirmed. Now, why is that exciting and important, right? I'm sure some of us are getting tired of historic firsts. I feel you. I understand. It's oh, here we go, another historic first. But while the Biden administration has a lot to be criticized on, there are actually some things that the Biden administration is getting right with some of these nominations and the confirmations by the Senate. Dr. Lisa Cook is definitely one of them. So Dr. Cook is someone that is very well versed in terms of what are the racial dynamics in our economic system. So when we're looking at the Federal Reserve, we're looking at the rate setting, we're looking at, overseeing in terms of how the federal government, setting interest rates for things like the housing market and just other areas that are impacted by the rate adjustments. We just saw the Fed is increasing the rate to quote unquote combat inflation. Having someone with Dr. Lisa Cook who is very much into the legal arguments around or the economic arguments around reparations and understanding the deep root of systemic racism in our economic system here in the United States is definitely, the type of impact and voice needed in these conversations and discussions. So will one Black woman change it all? No. They always turn to us when things are in crisis and need to be fixed, like we saw with, the conversation around soon-to-be Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, but with Dr. Cook going into that seat, it breaks through, the mold of having to be a certain type of person with a certain type of educational background and credentials to be able to get in there. She's absolutely, a PhD. She's well-studied, well-respected in her field. I got to talk with Mark Morrell, the national president of the National Urban League, about her nomination a couple months back, and one thing he was insisting on, that she absolutely had to be confirmed. The Senate could not back down and allow Senate Republicans to, run over her the same way they try to do with a number of Black women that have been, and other women of color who have been before them. We saw similar attacks on Dr. Lisa Cook, not to the same degree and level as with KBJ's confirmation process, or even with, Assistant Attorney General Kristen Clark, but we saw similar racially tinged, racially tweaked attacks against her nomination, questioning whether or not she was even qualified to lead. Quite honestly, by the time you're getting to the point that you're being nominated to serve on, nationally recognized segments of the federal government, you pretty much have an extensive history, career, educational background, unless you're being nominated by somebody like Trump, who just nominates anybody off the street. But with Dr. Cook, definitely someone who is well-versed in economic matters, definitely someone who has a very clear grasp on what is needed to help move the country forward. Now, will these little tweaks and changes, create the racial justice, harmony, equity we all, deserve and need? No, but it's definitely a positive move on behalf of the Biden administration. And, it's a good look seeing Dr. Cook go on to be a part of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors once she's sworn in. So that confirmation literally just happened. I think they tried to take a confirmation vote about a week and a half ago, and two members of the Democratic caucus actually had, I think, were out with COVID, and so they were unable to vote. And so her confirmation it temporarily got sidelined. At that point, Senate Democrats were insistent that they were going to take another vote, that they were going to push forward when they had their full 50. And Vice President Kamala Harris actually cast the tie-breaking vote, adding to the historic nature of this confirmation. Vice President Harris had to pass the tie-breaking vote. If only legislation could pass in this way without the filibuster, but here we are, and Dr. LeCook is going to be doing her thing. So it sounds pretty good. This is so bad because my whole plan to take over the world is in this shot this morning. But there you see, behind me what I'm up to. So next up, we have, there's quite a few things happening today. I mean, I think another thing that's happening is Elon Musk, part of his whole Twitter takeover, has indicated that he has plans to allow Donald Trump back onto the platform, right? Whether or not Trump will come back on the platform, who knows? He's a stubborn crybaby. But Elon Musk has said he would reverse Twitter's Trump ban. And I mean, the thing about him reversing the Trump ban also goes along with his his antagonistic approach to platform accountability and platform content management, right? It is extremely rare and really reserved for certain types of accounts. But quite honestly, whether or not you personally think it's correct is not the standard, right? And so, and the fact that Elon Musk is of the opinion that we should allow folks like Donald Trump to incite violence, we should allow folks like Donald Trump to lie on such a large scale, just because we don't want to alienate people, is also part of the problem, right? Instead of understanding the problem in terms of why Donald Trump was removed from the platform. Donald Trump, it took a lot. Let's just be real, right? It took a lot for Twitter to able to even get to the point where it was suspending the president, let alone the permanent ban, right? We've seen the same thing happen with Marjorie Taylor Greene, and oh my God, I'm forgetting the congresswoman's name from Colorado that poses with the guns, MTG's buddy. But anyway, it took a lot for them to even be suspended on the platform for things that they have done as well, right? So now we have Elon Musk, who is not just, he's definitely poking the bear, and it's just going to be interesting to see how people react and what happens if and when Elon Musk does, finally officially not only own Twitter, but step into, it's rumored that he's going to actually be acting CEO for a period of time after the sale is final, after his ownership is finalized, right? And so it's going to be interesting to see what exactly, the steps he takes in terms of not just whether or not he reverses this ban. I mean, there are many other accounts along with Trump that have been banned and removed from the site, but also thinking about some of the content moderation steps that Twitter has been taking. And again, Twitter took these steps not just out of the goodness of their heart, but because people have been actively pushing for platform accountability. You also have a lot of folks within the Twitter staff itself that have been pushing and moving for a better culture and community on the site so that people have, widespread enjoyment and not just the personal fifis of a select group of people on this that use the site, right? They've gone on to be on places like Gab. I know Trump was supposedly starting his own social media network, which has not really materialized, I guess, the way envisioned. The president himself has said that he has no intention on going back to Twitter, but it's just going to be interesting whether he goes back or not. Is irrelevant. The fact that Elon Musk is just trying to shift the burden or the way in which the content and the site is operating is a warning flag for a lot of groups. There has been a real push for platform accountability. There is a coalition of organizations that want to fix the feed. And it's not just targeted at Twitter. It's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok. All the major platforms have a similar issue in terms of the algorithm, in terms of content moderation, and in terms terms of, a real lack of platform accountability. Elon Musk has said that he will enforce the laws that exist in the United States. There are very few laws that actually directly apply. I mean, I would actually argue, say there are no laws that directly apply to what has been proliferating on social media sites for the last several years. So the Fix the Feed Coalition, it's groups like Free Press, the Color of Change, Kairos. It's just a bunch of organizations that have like three major points. They want these social media corporations to take three steps in terms of fixing their feed. They're not trying to tell them how to do their business. You can have your business model. Like if your business model is built on hate, that's a problem, right? So when we're getting targeted ads from, not just simply that we're getting targeted ads from Fox News and different problems thinking about Google and like targeted ads, because I know that I'll be looking at articles on the site I work for and I'll see a targeted ad from Tucker Carlson, I guess because I write about politics and I cover politics. It's just, here, this is politics. So we have a whole issue in terms of platforms profiting off of hate, profiting off of, harassment in terms of the content that's being proliferated. But at the same time, we see a stifling of, attempts to debunk, bad information, or we just see a stifling of conversation and people expressing themselves. I know one thing that's come up a lot, particularly with Black and other women and people of color, has been like when they try to call out racism or call out white people for doing bad things, they are the ones who get banned, right? So we also see like these glaring issues in content moderation because it's not very clear on whether it's a automatic content, like, this violates the I think Syra Rao, who's a good friend, had posted an article from the Huffington Post, and it was something about challenging white women or calling white people in. And that was flagged as something that violated, community terms on either Instagram or Facebook. I mean, they're all Meta, but I can't remember which specific platform. And so what was interesting, though, is that the content moderation will just look like, that violates the rules without actually looking at what the exact content is. But then you'll see, content or posts or comments, or there's harassment that happens in people's inboxes from, predominantly white folks who are harassing, who are targeting, who are just saying blatantly racist, homophobic, transphobic, misogynistic stuff and really ragging on people. But that won't get flagged. I personally have been harassed and attacked by someone, but because they're not directly adding me, even though their Twitter timeline, even though their Facebook posts are a complete fixation on me with complete fabrications, that doesn't necessarily quite violate the community agreements. You know what I'm saying? So there's all this stuff going on in terms of the platform. So when Elon Musk is talking about reversing the Trump ban, that's just like a real signal that he's going to let the floodgates open, or at least that's the impression. And the question is whether or not people are going to remove themselves. Are people going to leave the app? I just want to read the three from the Fix the Feed Coalition. Hold on for a second, because I thought I had them pulled up real quick. Hold on. The Fix the Feed Coalition. They want the algorithm fixed, right? So fix the algorithm. Stop promoting the most incendiary, hateful content. I mean, we see this often, right? Trump is a clear example of that. Even though he wasn't being promoted, allowing Trump would have clear violations of Twitter's rules in particular. Facebook too. Facebook has had a different approach. He doesn't have a permanent ban on Facebook. He has a ban. It's a particular period of time, and there's a Facebook board of governance, which some advocates have said is really a sham. There's a Facebook board of governance, and then there's a shadow advocate led. That's the real Facebook board of governance is what they call themselves. I could be getting that wrong, but that's generally really looking at the way in which Trump is allowed in particular, but other individuals are allowed to misuse these platforms. So Trump knowingly would spread false information, right? And people would spend time trying to debunk him. But he had such a massive following. He had such a massive reach because of that following, because just ordinarily an account that large just has a much farther reach than an account like mine, right? So myself or other people could try to debunk and challenge what Trump is saying all we want to. And that's the type of world that Elon Musk thinks is absolutely fair. But he's completely disregarding the way the modeling, the way the algorithms are already set up. It would allow for that type of bad information to be spread and really like boost it, even more. The other thing they want to do is protect people equally, staff up to protect democracy for all across all languages. So this also is not just about here domestically. This is also the way in which, these are all global products. Like all the social media accounts or social media sites are global products. We have seen conversations on how social media has impacted elections in the United States, but it's definitely played a role, whether it was in Brexit in the UK or we're talking about in places like the Philippines. There have been really clear examples of the way in which, and not just the way in which social media and the lack of content moderation, or in some instances, allowing, governments to dictate the oppression or suppression of people being able to use these platforms to speak out about things happening with the government, right? So there are different ways that the social media giants have responded to political pressure in other countries that are inequitable and that actually deny people, their right to speak up. And then the last thing is like, show us the receipts, disclose your business models and moderation practices. And so that has to do with like, there's a lot of shrouded secrecy in what these sites claim they are doing. We've seen testimony in particular, more so with Zuckerberg before Congress. And there are a lot of claims that are made about different things. But I think with the Facebook leaks in particular, it has been shown that there are levels that are going on inside. I mean, Facebook just recently admitted that it didn't know exactly what data it was collecting from everyone. So it didn't know exactly how it could approach protecting that data. Like, I'm sorry, you have baby Skynet just taking all of our data and you don't know what it's being used for or how to go about protecting it. That's a bit of a problem, my guy. So I mean, when we're talking about like, whether or not Elon Musk is taking over, what will happen, reversing Trump, what does that look like? Because it's also possible, like I said, like whether Trump comes back, but reversing your Trump ban and looking at the type of information that Trump was trying to proliferate, in particular around January 6th, is what got him booted off. That type of information, that type of language has been curtailed a bit more on the platform. So, I mean, this to me is really Elon Musk signaling, as he's already said, the end to content moderation as it currently exists, and it's lacking in many ways already. What I also think is interesting is the conversation folks are having about leaving platforms, right? Like, will people leave the platform? I did an interview recently, which hopefully will be up on the News One site this weekend. I'm just talking with some Black Twitter experts in particular about like this whole idea of ceding ground and leading spaces around the content moderation issue. And one of the things that a professor who has studied this, I wouldn't just talk to an academic about Twitter if they weren't also avid, witty, amazing Twitter users themselves. And so what he was saying to me is just like, there are tools, though, even with some of the issues around content moderation, there are tools that we can use ourselves to protect us on these platforms in varying degrees. How we curate our experience is still something within our power and has not been removed from us. So for those who do choose to stay on these sites, I know folks have talked about, a mass exodus. And there's some speculation that, people saw drops in their follower count the day it was announced that Elon Musk was successfully purchasing Twitter. And that follower count drop has been attributed to more so people leaving the platform and then more right-wing folks joining, because you also saw on the converse more conservative folks having like these huge growths in followers. So I mean, whether or not that's actually the case, whether it was cleaning up potential bots on the site or whatever the case may be, we can actually use like curation. There are a bunch of things that I no longer see. I usually don't see attacks or negative stuff when I'm on Twitter personally, just because it probably doesn't happen nearly as much as it used to, but I don't see it because I have just certain phrases, words, accounts. I looked at my block list on both Facebook and Twitter recently. I was like, wow, I've blocked a lot of people. But you do what you do for your peace of mind, not because you're trying to create an echo chamber. And that's the other thing, right? People think that content moderation, people think that like having good conversations in particular spaces is about creating an echo chamber for yourself. Now, there are instances where people will create an echo chamber for themselves themselves, where they want to just be around like-minded folks who are reinforcing what they think and believe. But creating a space where you are free from harassment or minimize harassment is not something that anyone should shy away from doing. And so you definitely want to walk through, like, if there are certain words and phrases. I mean, even if just for your peace of mind, you know, you want to make one of the accounts, like for me, Instagram is all about K-dramas and puppies and self-help posts. Like I don't see certain things on certain platforms unless someone directly shares it with me. And I don't mind having it that way. You know, it appreciates my enjoyment. So, you know, I know there are folks who are of the mind that I don't want to be on this platform. I find it funny, though, when people are like, I'm not going to use Twitter anymore. I'm just going to use Instagram. It's like Instagram is owned by Meta, boo. I mean, Instagram may not have as many of the same issues as Facebook, but it's still Facebook. It's still Zuckerberg. So, I mean, we can't run because the billionaires own every damn thing that we utilize as a part of our daily lives. And I think it's totally reasonable to expect that because of the way in which they have made sure these platforms are a part of people's daily lives, are part of the way people do business, are part of the way we do our politics. I mean, when you're thinking about digital organizing, being able to reach folks, you know, through different platforms, especially when you're a smaller candidate that cannot afford to be on TV in your market, it's a huge, you know, it has become a huge public good, even though it's privately owned. And as such, there should be some moderation and regulation in the process. But that's all I have to say about Twitter and Elon Musk. And so I have one more thing that I thought was really cool, but if folks wanted to call in, because I was supposed to say this earlier, I'm not really used to doing a call in, but if folks want to call in, David gave me the number. The number is 404-400-3250. We have about 8 more minutes with me before we kick it over to the team. So you can call in if you want to, 404-400-3250. We are taking calls. If you want to talk about the things I talked about this morning, or if you have a good morning greeting and something short and brief that you want to share, holler at us. The last thing on the agenda for this morning is, you know, a pretty cool thing happened yesterday. So I did actually have more good news. A pretty good thing happened yesterday. Sundiate Acoli, who's 85 years old, who has been incarcerated for nearly 50 years, former Black Panther, former member of the Black National, sorry, I almost said the NAACP, Black Liberation Army. I actually got a text from my stepdad, who also is former Panther, former BLA member. Very excited about this moment. Sundiate Acoli won his parole appeal yesterday in the state of New Jersey. Acoli was a part of, you know, a group that was charged with the killing of a New Jersey state trooper in 1973. And he has actually been eligible for parole, I think, for a little over 20 years now. And they have systemically refused. They have repeatedly denied his parole, despite the fact that he's been, quote unquote, a model inmate. He has, you know, mentored and advised others in their parole processes. I think listening to, if I remember correctly from listening to the hearing for this appeal, they actually talked about how he was charged, like he was given the task of preparing people who were, you know, on their way to returning, you know, back into society. So you have Sundiate Acoli, who has, you know, checked off all the boxes in terms of being eligible for parole, basically being denied parole because, one, the underlying incident resulting in his conviction involved the killing of a state trooper, but also because of just the politics and who he is as a person and, you know, his former beliefs. And so he, you know, had to go through a lot of hoops to prove that he, you know, he recognizes that violence is not the means to social change that he once thought when he was younger. But after nearly 50 years, he is not released yet, but he is on his way to receiving a little taste once again of freedom. He'll be returning home to his daughter. His family has been waiting eagerly for years, for decades now, for his return. Governor Phil Murphy of New Jersey and the New Jersey state troopers both issue statements expressing disappointment in the New Jersey Supreme Court's decision. I mean, the New Jersey Supreme Court's decision was strictly by the book. It was strictly on the merits of Acoli's parole requests and appeal. And it's basically said like the parole board did not give any like substantial reasoning. They did not show that Sundiate was likely to, reoffend. I mean, the man is 85 years old, right? And so they tried to argue that because of his past history almost 50 years ago, that he would be likely to, reoffend again at 85 years old. And, the political motivation behind keeping him behind bars, behind keeping several former Panthers, several former Black liberation, leaders and folks behind bars is very clear. You also have folks like Mutulu Shakur. A lot of these folks are aging. They're aging elders. They also have, poor health. Mutulu actually has the same cancer my father does, multiple myeloma, which is a blood cancer that requires, stem cell therapy replacement treatment and stuff. He's also been eligible for parole for the last several years and has been systemically denied. They say Sundiate has dementia among several other health conditions. And also when you're just thinking about, when you're also just thinking about incarceration and keeping elder folks in jail. There is the Freedom All hashtag, thinking about folks like Leonard Peltier, thinking about Mumia Abu-Jabal, but you also have folks like Imam Jamil Abdul Alamin. You have, I mentioned Mutulu Shakur. You have so many different people who are still incarcerated, who are of an older age, who have health issues, who aren't quote unquote threat to society, but they are being kept, locked up because the system considers, punishment, more important than whether or not someone has quote unquote paid the time for this alleged crime, right? Wherever you stand on abolition or not, I mean, thinking about there is no valid reason to keep older folks who, locked up. Like there was a whole series done not too long ago about, I think it was in Mississippi, folks who had sentences that had been virtually converted, essentially converted to life sentences because they were sentenced, to a particular period of time in jail. But because there were like some weird hiccups or racist enough stuff in the law, they were not actually released. So you had someone maybe sentenced to maybe like 8 years and they end up being in jail for like 40 years, right? And so there are whole movements geared towards, or there is a movement geared towards releasing aging prisoners, just also recognizing the additional costs. I think we have a call I'm getting on the chat as we're wrapping it up from 651. We have a few minutes before we kick it over to Miss Georgia. 651, good morning, and what's on your mind today?
Hello. This is Tyler. I've called in before.
Hi, Tyler.
Sorry.
You're fine.
So I just think this is very emblematic of like our prison system and how people can just stay incarcerated for like years, decades, without any real justice, and a lot of people whose lives are just irrevocably changed. And I think we clearly need to replace our current system, just completely abolish it.
Absolutely. Tyler, you just spoke life into the conversation, and I really appreciate you for calling in and sharing that. I mean, absolutely agree. Thank you so much for sharing that. And we are wrapping up as I transition over to Miss Georgia and the team, but definitely agree, Tyler. Like this is a case that is emblematic of everything that's wrong with the system. The New Jersey police trooper, their statement, and Governor Phil Murphy, both of them are just no one who kills a cop should ever should ever be released, or, the law was changed. And if he was sentenced under the new law, which I believe the law was changed like 25 years or 20 something years after he had already been incarcerated, the law had been changed. If he was charged under the new law, he wouldn't be getting out now. And I talked to the trooper's widow and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I don't cheer for loss of life for anyone. I don't wish on that on anyone's family. But at the same time, people are punished under the existing system. They're punished in a certain period of time. The law says that someone's eligible for release when they're released, and there are certain factors to consider for their release. He has met all those factors, case closed. All the feelings and other things. And the Supreme Court actually wrote this, that, the passion or the political feelings about this have no bearing on the actual decision. The decision is what it is based on the law. And so if only we had more analysis of these parole decisions with that lens, and hopefully we'll see other folks being released. And we have seen some folks being released since the start of the pandemic because of some of the recognition of keeping, elder folks incarcerated. And I do agree with Tyler in terms of how we need to fundamentally change this entire system. So I'm Anoa Changa, and I have been filling in for Mr. Benjamin Dixon, twin, this morning, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday. Coming up next is, Miss Georgia Fort doing all the amazing things she always does. Peace.
7 rainy days have now passed by. I'm alone without you by my side. You let me down, I can't just you no more. You take away my
Good morning, people. Y'all know who it is. You know the voice, you know the sound. James Bobby Williams, DJ Exclusive is in the building. Good morning, everybody. Shout out to Anoa for filling in for Benjamin Harlow Dixon. Good appreciate you, Anoa. Y'all make sure y'all stay tuned, man. We got some more coming up next on the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show on the clock. The Georgia Fort is coming up next. Good morning, everybody.
Have really good advice, saying I just got to fight. I know you left me for somebody new.
Oh, you good? I know it was coming, so yeah, right.
I don't want to say goodbye, but I ain't got no tears.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Brother Dragon. What's going on? Ismo Nashis, Teresa, Boondocks Dragon, Spin Cycle, Latif. What's going on? Good morning, Malaya. I know you're listening too. Good morning. Infinite Content, what's going on? Mary C. King Tweety, good morning. Snack Panther, Shade Dragon, Black Ninja, what's up? Black Dragon, what's going on? Silk City Socialist, KFC, what's up, brother? Alicia, good morning, Alicia. G-Man, what's going on, Lainey Lou? Miss Sophia, good morning. Good morning, Mom and Daddy. I know Mama at work. Pop is listening. Good morning, Pop. Wilson, good morning. Jason, good morning to you. 1ATL Country Boy, good morning. AB, good morning.
Boy, you had me from the start. By the way you stare, the way you wrote it for me, yeah.
Don't forget Friday it is going down. Patron party, you do not want to miss it. No karaoke this weekend, but we will be doing a Caribbean theme. We're going to do Caribbean this weekend. So we're going to have a Caribbean reggae party. Make sure that y'all have y'all face in the place. You don't want to miss it. It is going to be fun. Throw your hands up. Carly Wynn, good morning. T for real, good morning to you.
Days up, we should take it slow. Baby, keep your focus. Don't you make me change my mind. If you
Michelle, good morning. Survey Will, good morning to you.
Baby, don't you, baby, don't you, baby, don't you switch up the vibe.
Kareem Ransom, good morning.
Baby, don't you, baby, don't you, baby, don't you switch up the vibe. When you take me on a trip, always up and down and back and forth in merry-go-round. I just wanna get it right. But when you go left, I'm stuck here feeling left behind. Cause something went wrong, the signals got crossed, and now we're going different directions. Let's go where we were, when no one gets hurt.
Magdalene Moon, good morning.
Right there, don't you stress the flow. You're trying to pick the pace up, we should take it slow. Baby, keep your focus, don't you
Reagan Lennon, good morning to you.
If you love me, baby, don't you switch up the vibe. Baby, don't you, baby, don't you, baby, don't you switch up the vibe. Baby, don't you, baby, don't you, baby, don't you switch up the vibe. If you love me, just like you say you do.
Amber, good morning. Carp, good morning to you.
In Southern California, it's where the people came to play. Don't let them transform you.
Iris Jones, good morning. Struth the Dragon, good morning, Struth. Did I say good evening? Maybe afternoon? Who knows? Good morning. Either way it goes. Tiger, good morning, Tiger. Shout out Tiger in the chat. Melanie Dennis, good morning. Y'all, I think my phone is broken. I pressed the home button and I'm still at work. How the hell does that work?
What happened to euphoria? Oh, don't worry about it, don't worry about it, damn. I'm too excited, dark liquor with the palm trees. It's all or nothing, ooh, it's all or nothing, no other sign.
Good morning. I am independent journalist Georgia Fort here with the latest. We're learning through the CDC that the U.S. homicide rates have reached the highest in more than 25 years. During the pandemic, the highest amount of homicides was reported across the country since the 90s. Noah, this is always such a difficult topic for me to talk about because when you look at these numbers, African Americans are disproportionately impacted. I think about 40% of those homicides happen to be Black people. And oftentimes in our community, we've been coined with, Black on Black crime. And no other race has this, even though it actually happens, right? We don't hear about white on white crime. We don't hear about Asian on Asian crime. And so it's hard for me because in covering the stories of gun violence, and when it's a Black person who has killed another Black person, obviously these are not positive stories. And what is the answer? How do we hold people accountable? How do we end community violence? What are some of the remedies? What are some of the things that we can do to take action to prevent this from happening? And so those answers tend to be, there's a wide spectrum of answers that you get when you start asking those questions. And so it's just always a very difficult topic for me.
Yeah, I mean, good morning, Georgia. Nice to be here with you, first off. Second of all, I think as a mom, Well, I'll step back. Saw a post yesterday from Good Kids Mad City on Twitter, and they were talking about a young person who had been gunned down, an incident that happened on a Chicago bus. I think been about 15 years now, right? And how, the family and the community are still commemorating this young person's life. It made me think of something that happened when I was a teenager in Chicago, right? Like in the 90s. I was on a bus with my little sister, and someone ran up on the bus with a gun, and like everyone flew off. And so we've had instances like that growing up. So when we're thinking about gun violence and victims of gun violence, there are a lot of us who have had brushes with, unfortunately, incidents like that, right? But to your question about, we're thinking about the increase in homicide rates, when we're thinking about the disproportionate impacts on Black communities, I mean, that also tracks when you're looking at some of the underlying actually causes of crime and, things that may lead to homicide. When we're thinking about communities flooded with illegal guns, I mean, you don't have communities being flooded in the same way as our communities have been historically. Same when we're thinking about, the use of drugs or the proliferation of drug dealing and things like that happening in our communities. I'm not going to get into like the conspiracy theory lane, but there has been, a targeting of Black communities with some of these, impacts. Like, we're not necessarily the ones, somehow making guns disappear from wherever they're disappearing from. I mean, there are people who probably are, I know people have reported that a gun reported stolen and wherever, showed up in the street someplace else. But there's a whole pipeline that exists that extends beyond just our communities in particular. But I think we're also looking at right now, the past 2 years we've seen this increase in homicides. We're also still in the middle of, even though it seems like it's winding down finally, but we are still, in the middle of a global pandemic we've seen increased unemployment. Unemployment's finally coming back down, but we have all these economic issues and considerations to go through. We also have folks being pushed out of communities. I remember my first job coming out of law school, working in Chicago, working with an organization that was looking at the redevelopment of public housing. They were redeveloping the public housing developments into mixed use, mixed income housing, the remnants of President Clinton's Hope 6 program. And so one of the things that was really interesting, we were sitting in a meeting and they were talking about how we were relocating families or whatever, right? And someone brought up, well, you can't relocate such and such and, some blocks within this one development because that's certain gang territory. And the place they're talking about moving people to is another gang territory. And, the officials and everyone's like, okay, that's not our concern or consideration. So we have seen conditions created by external forces that instead of trying to figure out a way to help work through and resolve gang issues in communities, a complete and utter disregard. And this was something that was actually, Mayor Daley's thing. I remember when President Obama first took office, there was the killing of the young man from Altgeld Gardens, which is a public housing neighborhood in Chicago. And one of the problems was the school closures. So the school that he was then going to, that young man that the teenager was then going to, was across, a different gang territory. And so he was from a different community going into a different territory. And, Mayor Daley at the time, his administration was like, well, we don't pay attention to gang boundaries, which has been to the detriment of, our folks. Yeah. So, I mean, I see Fox News and I see other folks, I see, things like the Manhattan Institute picking up on this whole narrative of the increase in, Black homicide. When we start digging into the data, on the whole, yes, Portia, Georgia, in terms of the disparity. But when you look at the greatest increases in the past years in places like Montana, that are some of the whitest states in the country, right? So there's a lot happening. I don't know what's happening in rural Montana that they've had I think it's more an 80% increase in their homicide rate. But you do have places like Montana. You do have places that do not have much of a Black or population of color that are also having increases. And I'm not sure what's happening with them, but I would like to believe that it's the common thread of economics and issues that surround poverty that are driving some folks into this type of behavior.
That's right. Well, and we'd love to hear from you, those of you who are listening along, watching along, 404 400-3250. That's 404-400-3250. If you have thoughts, comments on this, your own lived experiences, you would love to share, we welcome you to this conversation, because honestly, the answer is not going to come from one person. It's going to come from a collective. It's going to come from all of us realizing this is a serious issue. When you think about homicide rates being the highest that they've been in 25 years, and I remember growing up in the 90s and all of the murders that were happening and the fear that it instilled in the community. You know, people shouldn't be afraid to come out their homes. People shouldn't be afraid to live in the city and be pushed out to go live in these suburbs. Because even though we know, like you're pointing out, it's happening there too. I recall at one point there was when the homicide rate was spiking in Minneapolis, this was early 2000s, they did a gun buyback. No questions asked. They opened up one of the, historic Black churches in the neighborhood. I believe FBI agents were there, police, were there so that it was safe and secure, but no questions asked. Folks were able to come and turn in guns and in return get like $100 gift card to Target. And so they partnered with corporations who were in the neighborhood to offer some incentive, and also saying, okay, like the ballistics aren't going to be ran on, this gun. Some people were skeptical, but they would do them quarterly. And so, someone would test it out and see like, oh, actually nobody followed up. Nobody used that gun as evidence. Maybe I can turn this gun in too. And you would be surprised the amount of guns. If I'm not mistaken, it was in the hundreds that was turned in. And it did result in a decrease in violence. I'm not seeing people come together and do that anymore. And, I don't know, why, if the FBI, because there's got to be buy-in. There's got to be buy-in from the FBI, from the police department, because that's basically taking away their evidence to be able to close some of these cases. But at the same time, it's saving lives. And so I think it's going to take creative approaches like that, different situations, different ideas. We've had 21 Days of Peace programs where folks from the faith community go out and pray, and they're just visible in the community. The gun buyback program, we've had, different activities, grants that have been given out that don't require a ton of documentation or a long application process, and people going out in community and helping folks sign up for these grants. So there's a number of different things that can be done. But the biggest question that people are asking is, what are you going to do? And so I'm curious to know from you guys, 404-400-3250, what your experiences have been, what it's been like in your neighborhood. Because here last summer, we had 3 children who were shot in the head, and 2 of them died. One of them had to undergo surgery, and he ended up making it. But only one of the people who was responsible,
Georgia, we have a caller,
has been found. And so, that was extremely difficult for our community to see our babies being targeted in that way. I do want to turn now to a caller. Welcome to the show. State your name, where you're calling from, and your comment.
My name is Michelle, and I'm from Fort Wayne. I wanted to know, I want first 2 things. I think with the guns, I think that when you have a community that's constantly being riddled with the bad press, it's because it takes the light away from other communities. As far as, because I live in a community where it's predominantly Black, but we also have a lot of other cultures. Is like a melting pot, and they have like gangs amongst their community. And I hear gunfire like every night. But the thing is, it's not being reported. And my thing is they're shedding light on black shootings and people of color being killed, but no one's shedding light on the other communities. And I think if in part two of that, if they would have, and I've heard this in like jokes, but it's no joking matter. If you would take the bullets and price those at a higher cost, I believe a lot of that would be cut down tremendously.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thank you so much for your call this morning. And I agree, Noah, when you look at the media coverage, and this goes back to the comment earlier, we always hear black on black crime. But white on white crime happens just as much, if not more, especially when you look at mass shootings. You know, when the theater got shot up, when the schools got shot up, like 9 times out of 10, when the church got shot up, it was someone who was white. And but we don't hear about that. And so the media is definitely a tool that manipulates public opinion. And so when we talk about the rate of homicides going up, everybody assumes, oh, it's black people out here killing each other. But to your point, Noah, when you look in Montana, 80% of homicides went up there, too. So it's not just happening in black communities. It is definitely happening in black communities, but not exclusively. And so we absolutely, to our caller's point, should be asking ourselves, why aren't we hearing about these other stories?
I mean, I think you raise a good point. And, you know, that Midwest experience is something wild, especially when you're talking about growing up in the 90s and early 2000s. I mean, we're coming off of Columbine. I remember we finally got metal detectors at school. I remember we were angry when we got metal detectors at school because they weren't metal detectors because there was a drive-by shooting in the neighborhood during our lunch break. We had off-campus lunch at my high school. It wasn't because someone was shot in the head a couple blocks away when I was in, the 7th grade program at the same high school. It was because of Columbine, hundreds of miles away, and we felt like nobody cared about our safety. Nobody was doing anything to keep us safe, but we were having something imposed on us because of this threat at this white school, hundreds of miles away. And I think when we're talking about, like the way in which people are quick to just point to black on black crime because it's a scapegoat. It deflects from the lack of policy initiatives around gun safety and actually like gun reform, things that actually keep guns off the streets. Programs like what you were talking about, Georgia, like the buybacks, right? There have been successes in some places with buybacks. That does take funding and support. We see a lot of quickness to put more cops in the streets, but unfortunately, that's not necessarily taking the guns off the streets, right? But there are communities. I mean, if we had more support for some of these different community groups, I mean, there are different organizations in places like, Minneapolis, Chicago, places in the South across the country that are trying, people from the community trying themselves to resolve and provide alternatives to help, stop the violence. I mean, folks have been talking about stop the violence since I was a little kid, right? And so we need more support for that type of programming and not just, people, policymakers, legislators, elected officials saying and doing whatever because they want to appease the fear that comes from predominantly white voters. And it's not saying that, black voters, black folks aren't also concerned about their safety, but it just seems like when it comes time to actually like moving policy and taking action, we're approaching it. And I'm making a generalization, and maybe it's not a fair one, but we're approaching it very differently. It does seem like that there is a need, like even thinking about right now, we have a real issue in terms of gun violence, in terms of, keeping communities safe. And we have so many different politicians around the country running for re-election, automatically jumping to, I'm going to give more money to the police. When we have yet to see that giving police, now, regardless of whether you agree with defunding or not, giving police more money when they've already received like record-breaking amounts of money across the last several years and nothing has changed and in some instances worsened, should tell us that we need to be investing money in other alternatives to addressing these issues, right? So whether you're a defund person or not is, a different conversation. We should be saying we should pause on giving even more money. We're throwing more money at a problem instead of actually trying to invest in what we've seen tested solutions that have actually helped roll back. So whether that's, bridging community programs and church programs, helping those things be able to scale up, supporting community groups. Like I really appreciate watching the young folks organizing with Good Kids, Mad City in Chicago, because we do have these youth who are from the community who have been impacted by gun gun violence, who are saying we don't want to grow up in this environment. We want to be able to grow up, and we don't want to grow up in this environment, and we need to do better. And these are the things that we need holistically. But we also need to make sure young folks. So even though unemployment is coming down, Black unemployment is coming down. I just spoke with a workforce development expert from the Joint Center, which is a Black policy think tank. We were talking about the way in which we fixate on like, oh, unemployment is coming down, but we're not looking at the types of jobs that are being added, right? We're still looking at low wage jobs that do not meet people's needs. We're still looking at a high youth unemployment rate. When we're talking about this, disparities in unemployment, youth unemployment, Black youth unemployment continues to be in the double digits, and during the pandemic was over 20% at some points. So we're seeing, you know, we also probably have, quite honestly, folks out here who really could use some mental health support. I mean, the rage and violence that we see, I'm not trying to say that people who have mental health are violent people. What I am saying, though, is that untreated mental health can lead people to doing destructive things in some instances. And I'm trying my best to make that distinction without stigmatizing, but I really do think that we need to normalize providing that type of support and mentoring and love and it's a really, I'm saying this as the mother of an 18-year-old Black man or Black teen, young. I mean, I know he thinks he's a man. He's still my baby, but like just seeing, you know, what he has had to endure just being out and chilling and the situations he's found himself in because of whatever else is going on with people. Like, you know, my son just confided in me. He went to a prom after party a couple of weeks ago and his best friend got into a fight with folks and someone pulled out a shotgun. Like these kids are like between 18 and 20 and somebody's pulling out a shotgun at a party. Like what is going on and why are we experiencing this right now? It's a lot, Georgia.
We have one more caller before we break from 540.
And real quick, I'll say this as well, too. I don't know if y'all can hear me or not. You guys spoke on some amazing things. Good morning to y'all, both of y'all, by the way. Sorry.
Morning.
One thing that I'm noticing here in Atlanta is a lot of the violence that's happening with kids under 18. I mean, between 10 to 15-year-olds shooting other kids 10 and 11 in the head. And the community, it just needs to be an outreach. I know outside of my apartment complex, a little boy couldn't have been maybe 8 or 9 years old talking about, I'm about to go get my gat because he was playing with another older kid like 12 or 13. I'm just like, what is going on? So it definitely something needs to be done in the community to get these kids out of the way. Here in Atlanta, of course, y'all know about the Water Boys. It's still an ongoing thing. One time they were peaceful. Now it's to the point to where they are just... You never know what you're going to get. You don't know if you're going to pull up. You don't know if they're going to try to steal your car or they're going to carjack you because you don't want to buy a bottle of water.
Right. Well, I do want to get this call. I believe we still have a caller on the line. Good morning. If you can state your name, where you're calling from, and share your comment.
What's up, y'all? It's Tiger. All right. So I'm going to be brief with this. Oh, can you hear me first off?
Yep, we can hear you.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm just going to expand a little bit on what you said because I know we don't got much time. Essentially, to break it down to the bare bones of the situation, we are a country that was born through violence, and we have never rectified the scars. Yeah. And be it racial violence, gun violence, white violence of thinking I am right and you are wrong, we are just saturated with so much violence that we have never come to terms with that. And that being said here, the pandemic was another form of violence pushed down upon us. So people at the top, of course, politicians, anyone who was in charge, really, the bosses who were safe, they forced everyone into their offices, into their warehouses, into the schools, saying, it's fine, don't worry, just go. Now we're all dealing with this collective trauma of trying to get, essentially stay alive. I mean, people were fired from their jobs. You've got people who no longer have a form of income at all. All these people, we are in a boiling pan, and that pan is about to, someone just threw grease in. Add in Trump to the mix. It's everyone's just we are a powder keg ready to explode. That's why violence is ticking up.
Yeah.
Being honest,
thank you. Thank you so much for that perspective. because on the backdrop of the pandemic, there are a lot of psychological impacts that people endured, as Tiger pointed out, losing your jobs, being forced to stay at home, the president, the election, January 6th, the murder of George Floyd. I mean, there was so much that happened. And even seeing the militarized response to a lot of the protests when Black people were killed, right? And so when you have people in uniform, you have the government coming in and taking a violent approach, even in response to people demanding justice. Where does all of that, people internalize that, and where does that go? And so other people have studied, following civil unrest, how there usually is an uptick in violent crime. And so I think that all of these different components play a role. The last thing I'll say here as we prepare to wrap up, we saw here in Minneapolis, Noah, you talked about police and regardless of how people feel about defunding the police, that they've received record amounts of money in, the last few years. The thing we saw with the community violence is it was politicized last election cycle, and it was politicized in a way to make people vote for the police, vote against defund, vote against reform. And so, that to me is saddening. And it's like a layer of disgust, because how do you politicize community violence? How do you politicize people being killed? But the people who, back the blue and whatnot, they use that as talking points to defend why we still need the police, why the police need more funding. And here specifically on the ballot, because we're in Minneapolis, there was a vote for whether or not to transform the police department into a Department of Public Safety, which would really shift the power dynamics of who controlled the police department. And it would allow for more civilian oversight of the police. And of course, the police department didn't want that to happen. The mayor didn't want that to happen. A lot of folks didn't want that to happen. And so their number one talking point to convince people to vote against that was the community violence. And I know that it's not just being politicized here, but I know we could talk about this all day. We are on the clock. We're out of time. Folks, feel free to share your thoughts and your comments in the comment section below. We'll definitely keep the conversation going, because this isn't something that's going to be resolved overnight. This is an ongoing issue that as a community, we have to keep talking about. We have to find solutions for. Noah, I know you're sticking around, I think. What can people expect coming up on the rest of the show?
Well, actually, I'm about to go too.
Noah's gonna drop. We're gonna stay.
I gotta go too today. But
DJ,
because I have some more writing to do. But I have been it's been such a joy being here and having this conversation.
Likewise.
I really do want to find ways for us to continue this conversation in particular. I don't know, maybe Georgia and I know we'll be doing the Twitter Spaces or something on this topic soon.
That would be dope.
We definitely need to find a space and make that happen. So, I think we should do a Twitter Spaces or something like that on this topic and pull some other folks in with us too.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. But seriously, thank you for inviting me to join you this morning. And
we'll see you tomorrow.
Whatever you're doing, you'll see me tomorrow. And holler a shout out to Ben for whatever he's doing that has me up at 8:00 in the morning.
Right, Noah.
I'm up anyway.
Love you, Noah.
Seriously.
It is in your hands.
Absolutely.
Wait, I'm leaving too, y'all. Y'all can't leave me as well. Shout out Georgia Ford and Noah again for holding it down. As usual, we greatly appreciate y'all. Noah was tomorrow. Georgia will see you tomorrow as well, too. Y'all make sure y'all stay tuned, man. More is coming up next on the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show.
Why let this go? Touch you once, I go numb. Heartbeats like a drum. Feel the fantasy.
Doja Cat is so sweaty. That's hilarious.
It's all that I want. It's all that I want. It's all.
That little Mexican pizza is good. That was like my favorite thing to get from Taco Bell. That and the nacho fries. I don't know what it is they put on them fries. I don't know what kind of pixie dust they put on them. Buster Be Good, good morning. It's truth, I appreciate you. Laura Strada, good morning.
Honey, I got what you want. Give me all of your love, 'cause it's burning hot. It's what you do to me, babe, I can guarantee. Honey, I got what you need. Under the night sky, I want your eyes all on me. Don't tell me lies.
Katrina, good morning, Katrina.
Don't play with me. Do you want it? Can't feel me? Can you handle it? Right? Do you want it? Turn up on hold. I can't take it anymore.
I'm over here jamming in my own world, boy. This song is okay. All right, y'all. We have a special guest for you this morning. Y'all welcome to the screen. My brother from another mother, Benjamin Dixon. Good morning, Brother Ben.
I am here and I am in the flesh. Brother DJ Exclusive. I got to get rid of all those extra church colloquialisms. DJ Exclusive is doing his things on the ones and twos. Welcome and thank you all for holding it down in my absence. Good morning to Georgia Fort and Anoa Changa. Anoa, I am going to give you a call today. Thank you for getting up at 8 o'clock and covering me while I am setting up a new location for my studio. So that's what I'm doing this week. And thank you all for holding it down. DJ Exclusive, brother, how you doing, man?
I'm good, brother. Good to see you.
It's good to be seen and not viewed. I've been in church too many Sundays. Like
what?
I found a church that has vaccination protocols that I enjoy. So I go there and that's what they say in church. It's good to be seen and not viewed. Anyway, I am here for one. I'm here for one specific purpose. I want to talk to friend of the show and professor and just intellectual. He is a national affairs correspondent for The Nation, John Nichols, rather, and he is the author of this latest book, which is so important, Coronavirus Criminals and Pandemic Profiteers. Brother John, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Benjamin Dixon, it is always an honor to be with you, brother.
The pleasure is mine. The last time we tried to have this conversation about your book, it was on the heels of Vladimir Putin invading Ukraine. That created a situation for us. And I want to just continue that conversation, however, in regards to your book, because we are now crossing 15 million people who have died as a result globally of the pandemic. In the United States of America, over 1 million that have been recorded. There's probably higher. I'm sure you have details on that. But behind the backdrop of all of this is that there have been people who have been profiting off of this suffering. Please tell us about your work.
Well, it's an honor to be with you as always. And you're right. We are at a point where the official sources are telling us that we're passing 1 million dead. And the troubling reality is that the good research suggests that the number is far higher, that in the early stages, we weren't always aware of the fact that some people were dying of coronavirus or as a result of being infected with coronavirus. And so the truth is the numbers are going to be far higher, and they are very high in the U.S. And then you add in the rest of the world. Look at this reality. We've been through hell. And here's the interesting part of it, though. While we've been through hell, and while a lot of people have suffered terribly, we've had 1 million dead, tens of millions infected, hundreds of millions of people impacted economically and socially. We see all of the mental health issues that arise from it. And then we say, well, I guess the one good thing is that we were all in this together. But that's not true. We weren't all in it together. The fact of the matter is that at the start of the pandemic, the billionaire class in the United States controlled $3 trillion, which is an unimaginable amount of money. Today, 2 years in, they control $5 trillion. What the pandemic saw was a massive redistribution of the wealth upward from the great mass of Americans to a handful, under 1,000 people who are, not just, forget about the term 1%. This is the 1/100th of 1%. And who are these people? We hear about them every day. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos. You run down the list of the wealthiest of the wealthy. And here's the interesting thing, Ben, the important thing to understand. While working class people were told that they were essential and sent into workplaces without adequate protective gear, into situations where they might well, and in fact did, die. And they did it because they felt a sense of duty, it felt a sense of connection to humanity, and also because they had to. These were their jobs. They didn't have a way to survive otherwise. The very, very wealthy were treated to their lakefront properties, to their oceanfront villas, and they turned on their computers. They started moving money around. And instead of doing good for humanity, right, trying to serve the great mass of humans, they asked the first question: how do I get richer? How do I make more money? And they practiced what Naomi Klein refers to as disaster capitalism. And the last thing I'll say is that they did so because we have a political class in the United States that serves the billionaire class before it serves the great mass of humanity.
I think that is a reality that most people are starting to come to terms with, particularly during the pandemic. You outlined the exact scenario that played out while the wealthy, and I'll be honest with you, it wasn't even just the wealthy. Some of us were in the middle class, and we were able to, upper middle class, we were able to work from home. But those of us who were working from home at the beginning of the pandemic, we did not see the kind of growth that billionaires saw. We saw an obscene transfer of wealth. Simultaneously, we saw workers dying. We saw workers starving. We saw workers being, living homeless, but being told that they were essential. Could you help us to understand some of the specific games that were played? Because not all of it is technically illegal. Most of it is legal, but it's obviously criminal when you think about how it took from the poorest while we were dying and gave to the wealthiest while they were vacationing.
That's exactly right. Well, again, we live in what we're told is a democracy, or at least a democratic republic. And so you have to begin by looking at those who have power and those who had the authority to direct the response to this crisis. And so you begin with Donald Trump. And I don't think we should be, neglectful of him in this regard. We often talk about all the bad things that Trump did. I would argue that the worst thing that Trump did in his last year of office, and I am paying attention to January 6th and all the stuff that extended from that. But the fact of the matter is that in his last year in office as president of the United States, Donald Trump lied to the American people about the severity of the pandemic, about the severity of the threat. And then he bragged about lying to Bob Woodward in an interview during the course of the pandemic. In real time, he bragged as the president of the United States about lying to the American people about a pandemic that would kill 1 million of them, that would infect tens of millions, that would economically impact hundreds of millions. Now, how serious were his lies? And how serious was his malfeasance, that of his administration? Well, the Lancet, the British medical journal, suggests that in the United States, the death rate was 40% higher than in comparable countries that had leadership that basically tried to make some effort to serve humanity. So you think 40%, you look at those numbers, and we're saying that Donald Trump is personally responsible. I should say personally in his administration, responsible because of their deliberately dishonest, deliberately cruel and irresponsible response for, someplace in the range of 150, maybe even 200,000 deaths that did not need to occur. And then you look at the Senate of the United States, Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell delayed a relief package that was enacted in the spring of 2020 until the end of the year. And why did he delay it? He delayed it because he wanted to have liability shields for multinational corporations added. He said, I won't give you the aid that saves people's lives, that helps people to make it through this crisis until corporations are protected. So that's the top line that you need to remember. And I'll leave you one other thing. When we talk about the Trump administration, I do chapter by chapter looking at individuals in this book. And one thing that needs to be understood is there's just simple things that they could have done. Eugene Scalia, who was the Secretary of Labor, could have issued workplace guidances and protocols that would have protected workers in meatpacking plants and in grocery stores and in other places across the country. He refused to do so in anywhere near the level that was needed. And Elaine Chao, the Secretary of Transportation, could have issued a national mask mandate for public transportation. She refused to do so, even though she was literally begged by the unions that represent transportation workers in places like Atlanta and across this country. The end result is that you had bus drivers and train workers, you had meatpacking plant workers and grocery store workers, delivery people who got sick and died when they did not need to die.
Have to. I'm a person of faith, and part of me, doesn't look at death as final, but I'm also a skeptic, and I look at death pretty final. These people have no regard for human life whatsoever. And yet they are now trying to take a woman's right to choose away based on some sense of morality. Brother John, we only have a few more minutes, and I definitely want everyone to go pick up the book, Coronavirus Criminals and Pandemic Profiteers. But could you just in the last couple seconds help me with something I'm struggling with? Did you get the sensation that this government has not only abdicated its responsibility to the American citizen, but now these administrations, particularly the Trump administration, as you've outlined, and there's been a lot of people who have died underneath the Biden administration as well. But these administrations are not only abdicating their responsibility to lead, they're actually putting our lives in harm's way and causing our deaths. I don't feel like this is a normal time in history. And I also don't feel like maybe people understand that this is next level. This isn't just something that we give commentary about. You and I have talked about this over the last year and a half, maybe 2 years. We've been watching this. This is alarming when it comes down to the simple responsibility of what kind of government we have. Would you talk about the failing social contract with the few seconds that we have left?
Sure. In this limited time, it's not hard to talk about. Look, here's the bottom line. The reality is that a social contract, which we hear talked about a lot in civics classes and history classes, a social contract is a basic construct that says you give an immense amount of power to individuals who are then supposed to exercise that power in your interest. The fact of the matter is that we are now generations into a circumstance where those in power do not exercise it in our interest. We can argue that in many ways it goes back to the founding of the country, when you literally excluded massive numbers of people from even the right to vote, even the right to participate, where huge numbers of people were enslaved, where the majority of the people were disempowered, both politically and socially. So it's a long history, to be sure. But we try to tell ourselves that we've become more enlightened, that we've grown, that we've moved in the right direction. And yet, what we realize is, what we come to understand is that those who are in power, a Richard Nixon, a Ronald Reagan, a Bill Clinton, a George W. Bush, a Dick Cheney, a Donald Trump, again and again and again, they operate with impunity. They do what they want to do And what they want to do is to increase their political power as well as the economic power of those who support them. That is the simple, basic reality. And until we start to hold our political elites to account, i.e., to say Donald Trump was responsible for hundreds of thousands of people dying that didn't need to die, and for that he should be held to account, until we say that the billionaire class, which reaps huge exponential advances in their position economically, has to pay a large portion of that back, as we said during World War II, as we said during the Eisenhower administration, that the billionaire class has to pay a 90% tax. That's what they would have paid during World War II and its aftermath. We've been through a horrible moment. We can't just have a lack of accountability. That accountability should take the form of criminal, civil, political, and taxation. And we shouldn't hesitate to demand it, because if we don't demand it, then this elite billionaire class and its political allies will continue to operate with impunity.
John Nichols of The Nation, national affairs correspondent for The Nation. The book is called Coronavirus Criminals and Pandemic Profiteers. Please pick it up and get enlightened on exactly how this system has been exploiting our pain through this pandemic. John, thank you so much for joining us.
Ben, it is always an honor to be with you. You do a great show, and it's good to see you in that very kind of bucolic setting there. You look in a good space.
I need it. I need it for my mental health, because these are trying times, John. These are definitely trying times. So listen, we're going to talk more about this. DJ Exclusive, I'm going to turn it back over to you. I'm going to go to the studio and get that set up, and I will see everyone else on Monday. Take care, everybody.
Thank you again, John Nichols, for joining us this morning. We greatly appreciate you. Make sure that you go pick up the book as soon as you possibly can. You don't want to miss it, man. Make sure you pick up that book. Again, called Coronavirus Criminals and Pandemic Profiteers. Make sure you pick that up. And shout out again to Benjamin Parnell Dixon for coming in and doing the interview today, brother. We miss you, man. We'll see you on Tuesday, should we say. Y'all make sure you stay tuned. Like it or not, it's coming up next with Rebecca Izor. Good morning, everybody. Oh, y'all, I forgot to tell y'all. Oh, my gosh. I'm organizing a charity ball next week. For poo-poo. I done messed it up already. For people who struggle to reach orgasm. You know, just let me know if you can't come.
Time is here and now. Don't you worry about tomorrow. This is really it, you know. It's a universe left to explore. We can go higher than we've ever been before. When you move to the rhythm and you feel the heat. When we move to the rhythm, we can't be beat. When you move to the rhythm and you feel the heat. When we move to the rhythm, we can't be beat.
Promises manifested.
9 a.m. to 10:30, yeah. Like it or not, is
Good
on your channel,
morning.
yeah. Politics and culture is we change scan.
Sonny Wright, good morning to you.
Interviews and all the news, we get to choose what gets the views. Like it or not, with Queen Azor, it's starting now, so stick around.
Like it or not.
Al Booker, you know you like my joke. Jessica Merrill, good morning.
Like it or not, y'all stick around. Oh, Rebecca Azor is coming through.
Hey, Rebecca.
You know, Stiana, good story for you. Oh, Benjamin, that's my dog. This is his show. He's a politics pro.
Juanita, good morning to you.
I am your DJ. DJ Exclusive.
Y'all know who I am.
Sonny Wright, good morning.
I stay dropping them jams. Like it or not, it's going down. Like it or not, y'all stick around. Oh, like it or not, it's starting now. Like it or not, it's about to go down.
Like It or Not with Benjamin Dixon starts now.
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
And welcome to
I saw Ben.
And welcome to Like It or Not, where we're free to tell the truth. And not care who
welcome
doesn't
to Like It or Not. Well, I just want to say I saw Ben. That's all. But welcome to Like It or Not, where we're free to tell the truth.
And not care who doesn't like it. Ain't it like seeing like a mythical figure or something that come through like
you would have thought that man never existed if we ain't see him today.
I'm not fooling with you today.
But good morning, everybody. How are you guys? I hope that you guys are doing really well. Thanks to John Nichols for coming on to the show. I know Anoa held it down this morning, so shout out to Anoa and Georgia. But, before we get started, I see you trying to come to Jamaica with me with your top.
Wait a minute. You didn't tell me that you were going to Jamaica.
Oh yeah, I'm going to Jamaica. That's why I got these dreads. I'm going to Jamaica. I told you I'm gonna be naked on the streets. Okay.
Come on, Stella. You better go get this groove back, girl. I'm not mad at it.
Why I gotta be Stella? Because I'm turning 32.
I mean, that's just the only person I know who got her groove back. Ain't nobody else go get their groove back.
I'm trying to get my groove back. How you know my groove? So you saying I'm trying to get my groove back? How you know?
Girl, that groove big on. You know you're going to get your groove back. Okay.
Baby, I be asleep by 7:30. And I be asleep by 7:30 and I don't end work until 11. So now, see, David called me yesterday, baby. I was trying to log a call and go to sleep at the same time. My manager had a meeting with me and he was like, I'm gonna just give you 15 minutes back. You sound really exhausted. Yes, I am tired.
You think?
I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I just need to close my eyes. He said, just go ahead and close your eyes for a second. Just go ahead and do that. I was tired. I was exhausted.
That was nice of him.
Giving you.
I know
right. I was about to say.
Mm-hmm. He called me to let me know that I could possibly be in trouble, but I'm gonna give you 15 minutes back because you sound tired. So yeah, it was. I was tired yesterday, man. And it wasn't even because of my hair. You know how when you be like, you gonna call off and then show up with braids the next day? It wasn't even because of my hair. My hair only was 2 hours. I thought it was gonna be like 6 hours, so I was ready to just go to bed on the girl, whatever. No, she's a young little thing that did my hair in 2 hours.
Yes, indeed. So she got to it just.
No, she did. She was like, so tell me.
It looks good.
Thank you so much. And it's all the way past, and you guys know I'm tall, so it's all the way past my butt. I used to get my hair done. Yeah, I used to get my hair done like this. No, they're not heavy at all. Not heavy at all. I used to get my hair done like this, back in college days. So it's making me feel like a little college thing. Not with the dreads, but with the braids all the way past my butt. Then I started getting neck problems. So I had to do it, mid back. So the girl, the young girls have found a way to make it lightweight. So I went to her, and I'm sorry to my original hairstylist. Girl, I could not drive over 1 hour to you and sit in the chair for 10 hours.
I'm sorry, sis. Yeah, your other hairdresser, I'm like, this bitch cheated on me.
I did.
We go through it the same thing with barbers. My other barber, I didn't tell him I moved on to somebody else. because one thing is closer, and it's like, just like I'm sorry.
It's 15 minutes away as opposed to 1 hour. The gas, the time that I'm sitting in your home, I'm there in the morning. I'm not leaving till night. This one allowed me to work, be back to work, do the show yesterday, get in my meeting for work, go get my hair done, come back and continue work.
Yes, indeed.
I said, girl, I'm gonna keep you. She a little 21-year-old thing. She was like, my mom, she every time she kept telling me about an artist, right? She was like, I love this particular song by, Summer Walker. I said, yeah, Summer Walker's first album was good. She's like, you don't like her new one? I was like, it's okay. It's not lyrical, but I really love Jasmine Sullivan. My mom loves Jasmine Sullivan. So then she continued. She's like, oh, I really, really like, it's this new artist. It's a male artist, and I forget his name. But she's like, I really, really like him. He's really cool. Not Lucky Day, because Lucky Day's 36. A lot of old heads, and I can't say old heads. A lot of people know Lucky Day from before because he had a previous name and he was a previous artist, and then he went through a brand change. He changed his whole brand up and came back out. Right?
Ooh, shut up! Are you for real?
Yeah, I'm dead serious. And because I remember some of his old songs too, but I didn't know he was 36. But I was saying, I really like this. She was saying I like this particular artist, and it was it's a guy. I forgot his name. So I said, oh, he's cool, but I don't really rock with that too much. But you know who I really do like? I really like Lucky Day. Yeah, my dad loves Lucky Day.
She's just making us look all bad, girl. What is going on?
I said, I'm 31 right now. I'll be 32 in just a few days. You're 21. She's like, wow. It was just getting crazy. It was getting crazy in there. I was like,
Rebecca, just wait until you hit 40, child. You're going to get it all over the place.
She was like, you look really, really good. But I saw there was like, when you walked in here, you were looking around. I said, because this is student housing. And I don't... she was like, it's apartments, but I'm campus. I wasn't on campus. They had their student housing across the way. It's still considered campus, but it's like across the way, and it's like beautiful apartments. But walking in there, it's just doors and doors and corridors and doors and doors and doors and more doors. And I'm just like, ooh. Then I walked into her place. Sorry if you're watching, young lady, but I walked into her place. There is no real furniture. There are 4 doors. One here, one here. You know how it was, the 4 bed and 4 bathrooms? Oh, I was like, baby. And she's like, I'm just looking for an apartment to just live on my own. I said, baby, I don't want to push you out if you can't financially do it. She's like, no, I can. My parents and my grandmother pay for most of my rent. I don't got to pay for anything. They bought me a brand new car. So I'm just... There is no responsibility for these new college kids. I'm just going to say that and put it there. I said, girl, so where's the money going? Like, you doing this hair, whatever. She's like, I just saved that up. Get you your place, girl. No. Go get a place now.
Well, at least she's saving it and not spending
she's saving it. She said her man is spending on her. But I just say that to say, they're trying to make me old. Millennials, they're trying to put us to dust. Okay. Secondly, the kids are in school and they not really getting the experience that we got in school, where we had to struggle. Parents was cutting us off mid-semester. They were telling us to get jobs. I actually did have the benefit of my dad still giving me money up until he cut me off. But you had to pay for your own gas. You wasn't getting cars dropped off in the lot for you. You weren't getting cars just like that. Who was saving money when the credit card folks was on campus saying, here, you too can have a credit card and live the life of your dreams? We wasn't saving no money. Side hustles were the hairstyles that you were doing during side hustles were the ones your friend was giving you on discount. Okay? But anyways, I was like, my house is furnished. Her place is not. It's crazy. And you got people walking in and out of different rooms with their guys. Oh my God. 4 bedroom, 4 bed.
I know it's a lot. Was it, dang, I bet you, it was up there by you, the school?
It's KSU.
Okay, that's what I didn't want to say the name, but yeah, that's what I figured it was. So cool, that's what I thought.
Yes, it's that school.
I used to work out there. I used to work in there. I was the retail manager. I ran dining services out there before. So that's how I knew what you was talking about. I'm like, I know exactly how this place is set up, child. That's too much. Too much.
It's too much, not enough. I said, my God. But, sweetheart, you know, and good music is good music. That's all I'm saying. The new music nowadays, they're giving us 4 words in the song, and they're not singing anymore. Anywho, speaking of the metro Atlanta area, it's not Atlanta. What is Atlanta is what's happening to Young Thug and his YSL crew. The latest, you guys, in what's happening, it's reported that Jack Harlow's name was being thrown in there. So
pause before you go there, Rebecca. Let me tell you something that I discovered last night as well, too. Because I saw you dropped it. And we have the clip, right?
We have two different clips.
Okay, I'll let you finish first before because it's the reason why I say that. I'm gonna let you finish. Yeah, I'm gonna let you finish. Okay. But Beyonce had the best video of all time. Okay, you can go ahead.
Thank you on your services. So his name was brought up in this conversation during Fulton County District Attorney's, and his name being Jack Harlow's. During Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis's press conference, which was yesterday, and it was regarding what we did see and what we did report on yesterday, Young Thug's recent RICO indictment. A reporter had asked the DA why Jack Harlow's name wasn't in the indictment. And so this was yesterday. And when he asked that, he shared to his Twitter account, what other people shared to Twitter as well, the video. And in the clip, the reporter is asking Miss Fannie Willis why he wasn't mentioned. And here is, do we have her response? Look, because I don't know what we got.
Hilarious.
Okay, and here's her response.
The indictment's got Young Thug and a bunch of other rappers. There was one name I was actually expecting to see there that I didn't, and that's Jack Harlow. Can you speak to that?
What I'll tell you is that as large as this indictment is, I told my team that let's not be sexy, now let's not overreach. Let's be conservative in our approach, which is always the approach that I take. And in taking that approach, 28 defendants were indicted, and they were indicted for the crimes that I believe were appropriate for this RICO indictment. And so I won't speak to any.
So, first of all, we'll get to what she said because it's very interesting. I didn't know why, but a lot of people were unsure why the Louisville, shout out to Louisville. Shout out, my best friend is up there. But shout out to the Louisville, Kentucky. That's not how she says it though. But rapper Jack Harlow. The people were confused as to why he would have been allegedly involved. The speculation was big, of course, on social media. And but what is clear is that both the reporter and the district attorney didn't know who Jack Harlow really was. So people were confused why his name was thrown around there. But what we do know is Young Thug, Gunna, who I believe that they just did arrest recently.
Yeah, he turned himself in. Yes, he did. Yeah.
Yeah. So and 28 others who are a part of the YSL, which is Young Thug's group, were basically indicted, and they're facing some serious charges. That's what we do know. So what did you have to add to that, Mr. Williams?
So what I found out was the reason why Jack Harlow's name was asked by that reporter is because of a trending tweet that somebody posted, and it went viral. And I guess he saw that tweet. He referenced that tweet, and that's why he asked her about that. So at this point, there's been no confirmations that Jack Harlow was even involved, because Young Slime Life, that's the name of the gang, YSL, is a gang that's here in Atlanta based, part of the National Blood gang. Yeah. So Jack Harlow wouldn't even have anything, wouldn't even have any dealings.
People were asking why. People were definitely asking why he would have anything to do with it. But everybody was confused. The fact she don't even know who Jack Harlow was. That's why she had to put her glasses on. Jack Harlow.
And Rebecca.
She said we would not make it sexy. Let's not be sexy.
We would not make it sexy.
got crazy right there for me, y'all.
Let me say, don't be too sexy. Wait, what?
She said, I told my team, let's not be sexy. Let's not overreach. Let's be conservative in our approach. Miss Willis.
Miss Willis. But Rebecca, let's talk about this for a second, because one thing that I read in what they said, the way that they phrased it is that his gang, or YSL, was committing. They're committing conservatively 75% to 80% of all violent crime in our community. They had a you moment right there. But the way that it was phrased when it came out yesterday was just like it was this gang all along by themselves. When the way they phrased it again earlier, later on when I saw it, is that gang violence in general is comprising 75 to 80%. What I'm thinking is happening is these are two big names that they have, and they want to just go after them. Now, granted, I do appreciate them going after the gang violence because it's been a lot going on, but I think it's going to have a lot of other implications with a lot of other people, as their rival gang is YFN Lucci. They're been talking about them being responsible for him being shot. So it's like this rival gang thing between both of the gangs. I'm like, y'all make too much money to be acting like this.
Yes. No, for sure. I think, honestly, what we're seeing right now is a lot of mess unraveling. It sucks that people who have money, like we said yesterday, just continuously go to the streets. And like when you made it out the streets, I know, we said this yesterday, and like I said, I'm closely connected to somebody who made it out the streets and went back to the streets, and I don't understand. It's not for me to understand, but sometimes the streets come to you and still look at you as that street god, and you feel like you still need that street cred, and you got to be the street savior, and and lead the people to more street mess, because it's almost as if you can't put everybody on in the way that you would want to, so you got to keep that street, that street title. That's what they're putting the pressure on you for. But you created this group, this gang, and to me, gangs don't always have to be violent. They don't always have to go out and kill or be a part of things that are negative. You guys can flip it, the meaning, like take it back, do what you reclaim y'all time. You made it out. The whole point of you becoming a rapper was to make money. You are a millionaire. You got money. You can do whatever you want. You are, and he does contribute to his community. But here is what you have contributed to as well. During your stardom, during your fame, while you're okay and you're comfortable, you contributed to things in the streets, and now it's come back on you, and it's terrible in this way. Gunna, who is 22 years old, has to step into this, and he's just getting his actual fame in his adulthood, just beginning his moments, his album just dropped not too long ago. He's coming into himself, and now he's a part of this. I know in many songs we've heard, even the DA here in Georgia actually stated that the lyrics to music and social media have been a great tool in helping indict people, especially in these recent RICO charges. So to be clear, this is not a federal a RICO charge. This is the state itself of Georgia. So it's more personal. It's right here. It's local. They can get to it. They've been watching. People been talking. We know that all of this may be a reason why Young Thug has got, but what they say all the time is that a lot of things that you did or may have done will always catch up with you. I don't want to see Young Thug go away. I love that man. Right. My sister was here trying to say, Melinda, my sister, she was here talking about, he ain't do that. He ain't really. Melinda, now, this. They trying to take him down. I said, babe, sis, I know we love him. We don't know that man. That is not our close counterpart that's going to, I know we getting flashbacks and we want to say that person didn't do it. We love him. That doesn't mean that we love him any less. We don't want to see him go away. We want to see him come out and get another opportunity, a chance, something. But if you did that, somebody's family is mourning somebody. Somebody got hurt in the midst of all of this. He has a son that as he's in there, doesn't have a mom or dad at this particular moment because the mother of his son was killed was shot not too long ago. So, did he think about that before going in there? Were these things on his mind? No, because street life, sometimes that fast money takes over. I hope the best to them, though. I really, really do. I don't know. I really do. And as for Gunna, I really hope that he gets. I hope that he. I don't know, y'all. I don't know. But this is actually happening in Atlanta. It's unraveling. It's unbelievable that Rico is, because we all just believed in Rico just yesterday anyway. So
right. So I didn't know what Rico meant.
Every time Rico comes up, that's when I have to go and, what does that mean again? And I start finding out new things. Like,
Meek Mill made a song about it, and and I'm thinking to myself, well, Rico is a person. Okay, cool. Yeah, so who is Rico? So yesterday I discovered, I'm like, oh no, Rico is a whole goddamn acronym. Okay, cool.
First time I understood what Rico was from Sons of Anarchy, because gang relations and all that mischief. So
don't know what that is.
You ain't never heard of Sons of Anarchy?
Okay, thank you, Jay. I was just making sure.
I was like, somebody gotta. I'm trying to find a really good tweet that broke it down. Dang, it was so good. Look, dang, it was so good.
Actually, Rebecca, I might have you.
It's gone. She done muted it. Sorry, y'all, for that pause for the listening audience. I apologize for that pregnant pause. There is other news. Again, we want those people to I want whatever's to happen for them to be made an example. People tried to make that Jack Harlow situation a thing for I believe they want to be like, why they didn't get the white man?
Yeah.
Who was part of the group. Don't throw that man's name in there. Y'all really crazy for that.
They just mad because Jack dropped the hot ass CD last week, and then he was at the Kentucky Derby with Drake. Him and Drake, you know what? Never mind. And then he was at the Kentucky Derby with Drake. They just jealous. They just mad. They trying to just pull the man down. That's all it is.
He was with another white man.
Hanging together.
Yeah, a whole nother white man hanging together, having a good old time. Anyways, we are moving forward from the Kentucky Derby because I wish I was there. As I told you guys, it is my birthday month. My birthday is just, what's today? The 11th. My birthday is 4 days away. 4 days away. I just got 4 days away from my birthday. But it's also Haitian History Month. It's also Haitian History Month. And during Haitian History Month, during Black Haitian History Month, that's an oxymoron. But during Haitian History Month, they changed out the press secretary for Joe Biden, and they made it, a black woman, a black Haitian woman, which was Karine Jean-Pierre. Karine Jean-Pierre. If you guys want to know the pronunciation, I know a lot of people are Karen Jean-Pierre, Karine Jean-Pierre. So they done made her the press secretary, and me and you were talking about it yesterday. Goodbye, Jen Psaki. Go get your rest, girl. Go be on the beach, legs out, get a tan, relax, think about your life for this past year. Go enjoy yourself. And remember we were talking about her being promoted, Karine Jean-Pierre being promoted to from deputy press secretary to now the press secretary herself, the press secretary. And I was saying I want to see somebody go against the grain. I want to see somebody do a little shake up and talk back. I want to see somebody actually stand there and say what is happening instead of being just a talking head for the president, even though I know that is the position. But being a black woman in that position, I think it'll be harder to stand in front of people and just be a talking head while things are happening to communities that look like you. So yesterday, she was in an interview. Well, not an interview, she was doing a press conference, and she let people know that Fox News was racist. Fox News was racist, and that was pretty good to hear because she was asked a question, I believe, about Fox News, and she called them racist. I think it was great. A lot of people were upset on the people's, Twitters. People gonna run their mind, think pieces are gonna come out, but knowing that we have somebody to actually speak against racism 5 minutes into having her position, that's what I'm talking about, baby. Come in and disturb the peace. So she during the TV. I'm sorry. I'm getting emails from my job as well. I'm like, oh, it's a lot happening right now. I'm sorry. But anyway, she called.
Me too, David.
I apologize. So she called them racist. And I think that while we're looking, this interview that she did, though, it didn't happen just yesterday, but it happened while she was standing near Jen Psaki. She called them racist. I think this is what we're going to see more of while we have her standing at the pulpit. I think that we want to see more of this standing at the pulpit. They done made it go viral to say that she's not fit for the position. She hasn't been there 5 minutes.
Right.
He hasn't been there 5 minutes, and they're pulling up clips that do matter. But it shows you that we have someone who isn't afraid to press buttons and to actually call people out for what they are. We don't need people to say, I don't believe America is racist, and then go missing. We don't need people in power to be doing that, because we know there's somebody in power who was doing that on today. We haven't heard from her since. We did it, Joe. We haven't heard from her since. But shouts out to her, Colleen. I really, really want her to win. I really look forward to what she can do. I don't want to be disappointed. I know a lot of times we do put our eggs in one basket, and I'm willing to do that for this woman.
Yeah.
She Haitian, so I'm willing to do that for her. I am. Like my mom says, I am. Mom, there's no why there. I am.
That's how I respond to it. When everybody asks, are you going to say this? I am. I put the I and I'll do a little yam emoji. I am.
Yes, I'm due. No, Mom. Yes, I did. Yes, I'm due. No, Mama. Yes, I did. I did. Shout out to Mama. But yes, shout out to her. It's a lot also that we didn't cover yesterday. I wanted to get to this particular TikTok from yesterday that we need to discuss. It is before we get out of the main show and go into our after party, there's a TikTok star that tried to say there was true oppression to white women. This went viral over the weekend, or during the weekend, and this particular TikTok star, and I couldn't tell you what she was really complaining about, but when I listened to it, I couldn't believe it. And before us black people step up to the forefront to read her rights for saying that black women aren't oppressed like white women are, and y'all, when y'all hear the reasoning, it's gonna make you want to just, I don't even know. But before we could step up to the plate and read her, because we don't need anybody to do that for us, but we all also encourage white colleagues to get their people in order. Y'all speak that language so y'all can get the people in order. So one guy, definitely one white man, took the opportunity and read her rights for us. Let's take a look at this particular TikToker.
The black and brown community has more resources in place because you guys have been fighting for a lot longer than we have. Because of everything you've been through, you do have more experience. You have more safety nets. You have more fire extinguishers. Is there a reason that you're gatekeeping them?
Wow. And this video is still up. How embarrassing. How sad. Baby, maybe instead of policing black women and how they gatekeep their advocacy, you address the problem of how white women gatekeep their privilege. In this video alone, you spell out how white women have sat on the sidelines and watched as black women, Native Indigenous women, and other women of color have had to fight for their rights alone, with you not coming to their aid. But now you want them to come to your aid when you need help? Wow. Seems like a parasitic relationship to me. Maybe you would have had some of those resources you're talking about if you actually joined other communities in helping ensure that their rights aren't taken away. But you have been perfectly fine to sit on the sidelines and watch. And now you want to sit on the sidelines and watch as black women and other women of color fight for your rights so that you can reap the benefits. I wonder where I've heard that story before. White feminists, if you want black women and other women of color to join you in your fight, maybe get the George Floyd police reform bill passed before we start addressing the Roe versus Wade. Maybe address the water sovereignty issues that Native tribes have had. Maybe help other communities first, and then we can help join you, because the history that you have is sitting on the sidelines and watching as other people's rights are being taken away. Got it? Let's do better.
He said all of that. He said all of that.
Proud.
He said all of that.
Proud.
He said all of that.
Proud. Listen.
He said
She
all of
started
that.
off and said, "Is there a reason why you're gatekeeping our fire extinguishers?" Y'all.
Bitch wet.
There's so much going on in our world. Black women are at the bottom of every list. And you said that hey, mama. Y'all can't hear it. Dwayne's baby is trying to talk. She thought every time I talk, she tell you trying to talk to me. I feel like the other day when she was cussing me out because I was talking about Roe versus Wade and how that baby done fought all the birth control options. Cussing me out.
Rebecca, you're in the middle of a rant. Hey, mama.
I know, because I heard. Sorry, I heard. So there was something sweeter than that white woman's voice that I heard earlier, and that was Dwayne's baby. Anywho, back to this. There's so many different issues that black women are facing right now, and a white woman want to come up here and say, "Is there a reason why you're gatekeeping our fire extinguishers?" Yeah, I have nothing to say about
I
this.
really thought we lost her.
I saw the earring dangling, so I know we were good.
I am shocked. Can we play that beginning of this TikTok again? Can we play the beginning of it one more time? I'm not crazy.
The black and brown community has more resources in place because you guys have been fighting for a lot longer than we have. Because of everything you've been through, you do have more experience. You have more safety nets. You have more fire extinguishers. Is there a reason that you're gatekeeping them?
Wow. And this video is still up. How?
This lady said that, y'all, we've been fighting for longer than they have. You goddamn right, bitch.
She said that's why we're more experienced, because we've been fighting. We're still fighting. And the reason why we were fighting in the first place was because y'all folks brought us over here. We didn't want to be here, and we had to fight for our freedoms. To this day, we're still fighting for. Not because we wanted to be fighting. It was because of people who look like you, your ancestors, sis. Till this day, you're talking about fire extinguishers. You're talking about resources. The resources that not only he named, but we don't get medical. When we go to the doctors, especially as black women, when we step up in any hospital, they look at us as if, first of all, she should be strong enough to endure whatever pain that she's feeling. So let's get the next patient and have her on hold. Although she is about to have that baby in 2 seconds, she could take the pain. Or her endometriosis is acting up right now. We'll just throw her on some drugs, see if she could pay for it. If not, we'll definitely tax her 1,000,000 times more. And we'll start doing some extra work while we got her under. We can't even afford to go. We have to save ourselves in so many different ways, right? Not only that, housing for us is ridiculous. Getting money for us, we can't even go to the bank, no matter how great our credit is, and really sit there and ask them for the money and get it just like that. We got to jump through loopholes just to get housing. Yes, there is a difference. We are not gatekeeping anything. We're still struggling. Not only are we still struggling here, we are fighting. We're still fighting. We're sitting here while your people get to say me too, and then get to go and have their cases gone to trial, and they get to be heard, while the black woman who said me too a long time ago, she's looked at as if that's not even her that wasn't something that she came up with. But when a white woman says it, it's the whole world can follow along with that. Black men are getting shot down every damn single day. Every single day. Every single day. Do you have to worry about white people going out and possibly getting shot? Is that something that you worry about first thing in the morning? First thing in the morning when we see police officers, if we're walking out or we're walking our children to school, we have to, especially if they're black boys, we're having to tell them how to act and what to do to a 5-year-old that we're afraid to let them walk to school by themselves. We get afraid for our family members that we don't live next to when they get up and go to work, telling them don't take particular routes, right? When the pandemic happened, where were you? What resources were you getting? Weren't you at the front of the line? They had to create stations in places where they knew nobody would go except for the black people. And white folks were driving out to them areas and cutting in front of the line. You guys, stop it. Stop it. And that's only less than 1% of our issues. We got so many issues. And you're saying that we're gatekeeping resources. We're fighting to get them. While y'all saying that all we do is stay on welfare and all we do is look for food stamps because it benefits us. Because we can't afford to be getting food we can't afford to get food because the way that we have, the amount of money that we have to pay for housing, for living, to survive in America. Don't worry about my food stamps, darling. And studies show that white people are the ones who are mostly on them things. Because it's still hard for us to get access to them. I'm tired. Dwayne, get it off me because I'm tired.
You said that. That was Rebecca's rant for the day, and it was a well-said rant. Make sure we clip that and get that posted because, my God, today, you said a lot.
I am tired. I am tired of these people just getting on TikTok saying ridiculous stuff, and we are going to keep moving on from it. We're going to allow you guys to talk amongst each other. White folks, go get y'all people because they out here talking crazy. I'm glad we didn't have to read her for filth because we're doing it every day. We're doing it every day, and it's like once we try to sit back and say, you know what, I'm just going to chill in my black self. Somebody says something like that. How can you get to chill in your black self? It's not fair. It's not fair. Why do you get to close your eyes as a black woman? You don't get to do that. You don't get to rest. Girl.
This goes all back to that privilege. They think that, first of all, they still think that we back in the olden days. I say the olden days where y'all think y'all can talk to us any kind of way and that we don't deserve rights like y'all have. We are deserving of any and everything that y'all have, and even more deserving because of the shit that y'all put us through for not only centuries, but I mean, just be honest, from the beginning of time. So don't come at us talking about, where's my safety net? Where's my fire extinguishers? Bitch, look in your closet. Bitch, look in the mirror. Bitch, look in a lot of places. There's a lot of places you can look. Don't get me started, Rebecca. See, you know what? I digress. Because I just started. Rebecca has started something. So Rebecca started something. Let me stop.
Listen,
called the white lady be like 3 times on this TV show already.
Listen. No, but honestly, we came to the end of the show, so don't worry about it. You know what I'm saying? It's at the end of the show. Charge it to the game. We upset. We mad. I'm upset. No, and so we're at the end of the show. Thank you guys for hanging with us. Ben was here. You missed him. He was fast. Okay, he does exist. He is still here. You will see him on next Tuesday. Again, it is my birthday weekend. You will not see me on Friday, but you'll see me tomorrow. I'll be hanging with you guys tomorrow. And for everyone who's asking how to bless me on my birthday, Becca's Voice on Cash App. Also, head over to the Patreon party. If you are not a Patreon now, please show up at www.patreon.com/like it or not. Support, come on through, and let's go and have a party. Come party with me.
See, and you see how that worked out so good, Rebecca. Friday's patron party theme is going to be Caribbean themed. Rebecca won't be there, but we'll be celebrating with her in spirit as we take it to the islands, man. We're going to hit every island. Bahamas, Jamaica. We're going to throw some soca in there, some everything. I don't know. If you got an island and you want me to play it in there, yeah, I'm going to get it in there too. So again, y'all, patron party is on Friday, and if you have not become a member yet, you can. Patreon.com/like it or not, Patreon.com/the BPD show. Get access to the patron parties. You don't want to miss it. Your affirmation for today, if you're not coming to the after party, is I am proud of even the days I stay in the same place rather than move backward. I am proud of even the days I stay in the same place rather than move backward. That one was kind of confusing, but okay, there it is. That's what the affirmation says, so I'm just doing the delivery. Rebecca ain't either. I'm like, what the hell is that? I'm still confused too. I think I'm gonna choose another one for y'all because that just wasn't given. Yes, I accept the lessons my pain is teaching me. There we go. I accept the lessons my pain is teaching me. Y'all gonna be great, man. After party is coming up next. If we don't see you at the after party, we'll see y'all tomorrow. Deuces.